You notice a pattern in your life, though you rarely say it out loud. People who are drowning seem to find you first. They enter your days with stories half finished and wounds they do not know how to hold. Something in you steps forward before you even think, as if your chest recognizes their need before your mind does. You feel a quiet pull, almost instinctive, like a soft hand on your back urging you toward them. And every time it happens, you tell yourself you are simply being kind, simply being present, simply doing what any good person would do. Yet when the night comes and the room is still, the truth presses closer. You feel how often you become the steady ground for those who have none. You feel how easily your energy bends to carry what was never meant to be yours. You feel how familiar it is to slip into the role of the one who understands, the one who listens, the one who holds the chaos of another without letting them see your own. It is a role you never consciously chose, but one that seems to choose you again and again. And somewhere inside you, in a place you do not visit often, a question rises. Why do you attract people who need saving? Why does their brokenness echo something you cannot quite name? You sense that the answer lives beneath the surface of your life, like a symbol waiting in the forest of your unconscious. You can feel it breathing, but it remains just out of reach, calling you without revealing its shape. Something in you knows this pattern is not random. Something in you knows it carries a message. And even if you do not understand it yet, you can feel the beginning of a deeper awakening forming inside you, like the first hint of light before dawn. There comes a moment when you begin to see the pattern not as coincidence, but as a quiet reflection of something living in your inner world. It is as if life places a mirror in front of you and asks you to look beyond the surface. You start to notice how the people who arrive in your orbit carry the same emotional scent, a familiar mixture of longing and fear and unclaimed wounds. They do not recognize it, but you do. You feel it in your chest before they ever speak a word. It is the same atmosphere you once learned to breathe. When you walk deeper into this recognition, you sense that these encounters rise from an old landscape inside you, a landscape shaped by shadow and memory. The part of you that steps forward to save others is the same part that once wished someone would step forward to save you. It is a silent imprint, almost ancestral, pressed into the walls of your inner temple. You learn to read the emotional night sky of others long before you learn to read your own. And so you move toward their pain with the instinct of someone who survived by anticipating storms. There is something spiritual about this pull, not holy in the traditional sense, but sacred in its intimacy. It is the soul reaching toward what it recognizes, the way a traveler recognizes a distant fire in the woods. You sense an invisible thread connecting you to their suffering. It feels like compassion, yet beneath compassion lives a deeper yearning, a longing to repair what was fractured in you through the lives of others. You do it without thinking, without choosing. It feels like destiny, though it is really memory. And somewhere in this silent dance, a truth begins to rise. You are drawn to people who need saving because their darkness feels like a doorway to your own. Their fear stirs something you once hid. Their confusion touches the part of you that learned to guide others while remaining lost inside. They mirror the shadow you carry like a secret forest, dense, unlit, waiting for you to step inside. You sense that your attraction is not about their brokenness at all. It is about the echo their brokenness awakens in you. Something ancient, something tender, something unfinished. And as this realization expands, it whispers that the real journey is not about saving others, but about turning toward the forgotten parts of your own soul. There are moments when you feel the weight settle in your chest long before anything actually happens. A friend calls late at night. A stranger begins to confide in you after only a few minutes. Someone you barely know already leans into your presence, as if you are the only solid ground they have left. You listen, you absorb, you carry, and while part of you feels honored by this trust, another part feels the quiet ache of something familiar unfolding again. It is the same sensation you felt as a child when you learned to sense the emotional weather in the room, the same tension in your breath when you tried to keep the peace by holding yourself perfectly still. In these moments, your psychology moves like a river following a well-known path. You step into the role of healer without realizing it because the pattern is older than your conscious self. It rises from a place beneath thought, a place formed by the shadow that once learned to survive through hyper-awareness. You became someone who can read the storms in others because long ago you had to read them to stay safe. Saving others was not a choice, it was a language, a way of navigating a world that felt unpredictable. You carried the unspoken belief that if you could ease someone else's suffering, yours might soften too. This inner landscape forms an image in the unconscious, almost like a forest with a small fire burning in the center. People who are lost gravitate toward that warmth. They feel your steadiness like a refuge. They feel your empathy like an open door. They feel your softness like a promise that they will not be judged. You do not advertise this. Your soul does. And so those who wander in darkness follow the light they see in you, the same light you rarely turn toward yourself. Each time this pattern repeats, you feel both connection and exhaustion. The connection makes you stay. The exhaustion makes you wonder why staying feels so natural. And as this question grows louder, you begin to sense that the desire to save others has little to do with them. It is the echo of an old inner fire that still waits for you to return to your own wounds, your own shadows, your own forgotten needs. This realization becomes the quiet bridge leading you to the next truth waiting in the dark. You begin to notice how the pattern does not start with the other person. It begins inside you, in the place where your longing and your fear intertwine like roots beneath the soil. There is a part of you that feels safest when you are needed, as if being indispensable protects you from abandonment. You sense it in the way you breathe around people who depend on you. There is a steadiness there, a sense of purpose, almost a calm. You feel useful, important, chosen. And yet beneath that calm lives an old tension, the fear that if you stop giving, if you stop holding, the connection might disappear. This internal tension is not weakness. It is a map that leads back to the moments you learned to equate love with responsibility. Somewhere in your early years, affection arrived in fragments, conditional, unpredictable. You adapted by becoming the one who understands, the one who anticipates, the one who makes things easier for others. This became your identity, and identities built in the dark are powerful. They grow like vines around the heart, until you begin to confuse the vine with the heart itself. In the symbolic world of the psyche, this pattern is like standing at the edge of a river at night. You see reflections drifting on the surface. Some are bright, some are broken. The broken ones call to you more, not because you enjoy pain, but because you recognize something familiar in the fractured shapes. You wade into the water, hoping that by lifting them, you will lift yourself. You hope that healing another will bring a sense of healing to the wound you carry quietly. It is a noble impulse, but it is also a longing disguised as duty. Each encounter becomes a repetition of an ancient story. You meet someone who cannot hold their own night. You take their hand. You guide them through shadows you never dared to explore in yourself. And when they lean on you, you feel the warmth of connection, the warmth you have chased for years. But there is a tremor underneath, the silent truth that you are carrying what you secretly wish someone would carry for you. This recognition begins to illuminate the dark river inside you. It shows you that the pattern is not about rescuing others, but about the unseen parts of you that still wait by the water, hoping to be saved. This is where the deeper revelation begins. There comes a point when the weight becomes too familiar, almost ritualistic. You feel it when someone begins to unravel in front of you, their voice trembling, their story spilling across the floor like scattered pieces of a forgotten night. Something in you tightens and opens at the same time. You step closer. You offer comfort. You lift what falls. It feels natural, almost predestined, as if you have rehearsed this moment in countless dreams. But deep inside, beneath the quiet service, a question begins to move. Why does this role always find you? Why do you feel responsible for pain that is not yours? As the question grows louder, your unconscious begins to reveal the architecture of the pattern. You see how the savior instinct can become a mask, one that hides your fear of being truly seen. Saving someone else allows you to avoid your own vulnerability. It is easier to disappear into another person's chaos than to face the silence within your own. The psyche creates these detours with remarkable precision. It leads you toward others, so you do not have to face the abandoned rooms of your inner home. You become the healer because confronting your own wounds feels like walking into a temple with no light. In symbolic language, this is the moment when the dream shifts. You find yourself standing before a tall mirror in an empty corridor. The mirror is old, almost silvered by time. At first you see the faces of everyone you have ever saved, floating like faint reflections on the glass. Then they fade, and what remains is your own reflection staring back at you with quiet expectation. The mirror asks nothing. It simply waits. And as you look into it, you realize that you have spent years tending to other people's fires while your own remained untouched, a lonely ember glowing in an unseen corner of your life. This recognition does not accuse you. It softens you. It invites you to step closer to the mirror, to breathe with it, to acknowledge that beneath the savior role lives a longing for self-acceptance. You realize that saving others was never the true journey. It was the doorway leading you back to the place where your own healing waits. And with this awakening, you feel the first stirrings of a deeper transformation rising within you, ready to guide you into a new way of being. There is a moment when everything you have carried gathers itself into a single breath. You feel the old stories rising, the childhood echoes, the instinct to save, the quiet longing beneath it all. They move through you like shadows returning to their source, no longer scattered, no longer hidden. You begin to understand that every person you tried to rescue was a reflection of a forgotten part of you. Every wounded soul who reached for your light was an invitation to turn inward and meet the places where you still tremble. This realization does not hurt. It unfolds like dawn breaking through a long night. You notice how much of your compassion was shaped by the pain you endured, how your tenderness grew from the silence you learned to navigate, how your ability to hold others came from the years you held yourself without guidance. There is no shame in this, only truth, the kind of truth that clears the air inside you, the kind that makes room for a different way of loving. You begin to feel the boundaries you never knew you needed. Not walls, not distance, just a softer alignment, a quiet recognition that your soul is not a vessel for the storms of others. It is a fire that deserves its own attention. And as this understanding deepens, you sense a shift in the way you stand in your own life. You feel your chest open with a gentler strength. You feel your breath slow into a steadier rhythm. You feel the pattern loosen its hold, not through force, but through clarity. The need to save others dissolves into something more spacious. You can still care. You can still love. But now the love flows from a place that is whole, not wounded. You no longer walk into other people's nights hoping to find your own reflection there. You carry your own light, steady and unhurried, like a lantern guiding you back to yourself. You begin to sense a quiet peace rising where the old urgency once lived. The pattern that shaped so much of your life softens into understanding. You see that you were never meant to carry the weight of every wandering soul. You were meant to understand why their presence stirred something deep in you. And now you do. You feel it in the way your breath settles, in the way your body feels less strained, in the way your heart no longer leans forward in search of approval. The truth is simple. You do not need to save anyone to be loved. You do not need to hold the world together to earn belonging. You do not need to lose yourself to prove your worth. When you step back into your own center, the world around you rearranges itself. You begin to attract people who can stand beside you, not on you. People who meet you, not consume you. People whose wounds do not demand your rescue, but invite your honesty. In the days ahead, notice the small shifts. The pauses where you choose yourself. The moments where you listen without absorbing. The gentle way you begin to draw boundaries without fear. These are signs that something inside you has awakened. Something ancient, something wise, something finally ready to breathe. Let this awareness follow you quietly, like a soft light through the forest of your life. And when you feel the old pattern call your name, pause for a moment. Place a hand on your heart. Feel the warmth there. Feel the calm. Remember that the only person you were ever truly meant to save was the one reading these words. Let that truth rest in you like a final ember, glowing softly in the dark.